Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now here I have the Engwe Engine Pro. This is a foldable e-bike, and in today's video this is part 3 of a 3-part series. In the first video we had an unboxing, set up the bike, got it ready to go. In part 2 a full feature overview, and here today in part 3 my riding impressions. Now at this point I have had this bike for quite a while. I've been riding it in a number of different scenarios, and I'm going to premise this entire video by saying my rider's experience and owner's experience has been fantastic. This is an awesome e-bike, robust, nimble, yet at the same time it looks compact, but it's a little bit bigger than you would think. It's built really nice, it has some great features, and the power to sort of rider ratio is really good. Having a little bit of an upgrade over other models I've taken a look at in the past, and definitely a bike I can say that I recommend. So again, in today's video, that riding experience, but with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Engwe who did provide this for review. The Engwe Engine Pro has been a fantastic bike to ride and adventure on. Whether enjoying a simple afternoon in the urban environment, finding my way from point A to point B, or for blasting down the trails, this folding e-bike has really proven that it has a lot of flexibility and versatility in its design. Although not perfect, I do have to say that this has been the most enjoyable e-bike experience to date, providing me with a stout and robust feeling bike, yet one that's nimble enough to maneuver precisely when needed. I will start this entire review by saying the Engwe Engine Pro is absolutely beautiful. This bike is definitely a looker, and I've received many comments from people asking questions about it with intrigue, and also saying how nice this bike looks. I'm not usually a fan of blue, however, the blue on this Engine Pro is probably one of my overall favorite colors, as it strikes the balance between a blue and a gray, and it has appropriate highlights and almost an anodized look. It is accentuated very well with all of the black hardware, bars, and rims, and speaking of rims, I love the way these mag-style rims look as opposed to the more typical spoke style that we've seen on other brands of bikes. These look sporty and aggressive and definitely speak to the quality of this bike and its design. The Engwe Engine Pro is not a small bike by any means, and in fact it is actually fairly large considering how compact it initially looks. This is technically a folding design, however for me, I have not yet found the need to fold this up. I've traveled with e-bikes in the past where the folding design absolutely aids in the portability and packability, and especially when you have other items to contend with and you have competition of space. But today I have not exactly had that problem, as I have essentially transported the bike in the back of my truck. Speaking to the size of this bike, I am 6'1", 175 pounds, and I find that I can easily fit on this bike and ride it very comfortably. But at my height, I can also see how it might be difficult for smaller riders. Starting with the weight of the bike being around 70 pounds, which is more than double a typical mountain bike or even triple the weight of a road bike. This has a step-over height of around 27 inches, which is also taller than many mountain bikes. The minimum seat height is around 30 inches, and the minimum bar height is around 48 inches. I found that for all of my testing, I had a riding seat height of around 36 inches, and I maintained the minimum bar height of around 48 inches. The Engine Pro is definitely larger and more robust than some of the competition. It has generally thicker tubing and heavier duty welds. This speaks to the sturdy and robust nature of the bike and demonstrates the quality, yet at the same time could describe why it is also heavier. This is generally not an issue, as the 1000 watt peak electric powertrain nicely delivers snappy power to the rear tire and gets the rider up to speed, especially in combination when utilizing pedal assist. I found that for the vast majority of my testing, I prefer to keep the bike in the sport mode, and I utilize the highest pedal assist whenever possible, both in the urban environments and also off-road. However, in the off-road scenario, I did find that from time to time, the full pedal assist could also create traction issues, and I was better off dialing it back to an intermediate setting. Engwe suggests that the Engine Pro could have a range of up to 70 miles in the Eco mode with pedal assist. In my opinion, if that's the case, the user would have to pedal literally the entire time. I would be a little surprised to find that the range is much more than 50 miles, even in Eco mode, but I don't have experience to back that up at this point. Keeping in mind that you can set the mode for the pedal assist, I did opt to perform the bulk of my testing in the Sport mode. When it came down to my first full charge of the battery, I got around 15 miles of total distance before I ran out of battery, but the good news is, being an e-bike, I always had the ability to pedal myself home. This is a double-edged sword where thankfully I made it home, but the combination of a nearly 70-pound bike with the 4-inch fat tires makes this one heck of a workout, and especially if you find yourself in hilly areas. I can definitely suggest trying to time your rides to make it home before you run out of battery whenever possible. The Drivetrain did a great job in the urban environment, but also in the off-road environment too. In the urban environment, I was able to nicely bomb around town, which makes this bike a viable option for your recreational rider, commuter, or even those who need an alternate means of transportation. And in the off-road environment, I was able to easily navigate rough and rocky and route-laden terrain in both the double track and also single track environments. The 8-speed Shimano derailleur and shifter operated accurately and responsively, and this particular model is definitely an upgrade over other brands that I've used in the past. The 8-speed drivetrain in combination with the pedal assist make this for a very enjoyable ride. One of the greatest features of the Engine Pro is the ability to transition from surface to surface effortlessly, smoothly, and with positive traction the entire time. The front and rear suspensions do their jobs to keep the tires planted and deliver a smooth ride. There's even a suspension seat that helps soak up some of the additional bumps. With proper riding technique, the Engine Pro absolutely delivers a fantastic ride quality, but there are some exceptions. I found that in all environments, the rear suspension performed extremely well and had no issues whatsoever soaking up the bumps, and even in some more substantial bumps, never felt as though it bottomed out. It had appropriate travel and appropriate dampening, and after some fairly substantial hard use, didn't even seem to show any signs of weakness. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the front suspension. So a couple of things that I'm going to say are in the category of misfortunate, which is a little bit of a letdown. Right here, perfect. Double wide, fairly flat, not a ton of rocks, not a ton of roots. It's a perfect opportunity for this Engwe. Now, when it comes down to it, the suspension, definitely too soft. It's clicking, it's making a lot of just real harsh sort of noise. I can feel it through the bars. It feels like it's hitting really hard to me. The suspension definitely has a lot to be desired. I found from the very beginning my suspension had a very loud clunk, and I find that regardless of the settings and dampening, that the clunk persists. It's hard to say whether or not this impacts the performance, as I do not have any way to determine whether or not the settings make a difference, but no matter what I do, the front suspension feels the same and exhibits the same clunk. After inspection, I also found that there appears to be a leak or overabundance of oil on the stanchions, and this might be an indication that these have a bad seal. Again, I can't necessarily say for sure, and it's something I'll have to keep an eye on. I don't know if it's that I got a bad fork or if they're all this way on this particular model. Regardless, the suspension does its job and delivers a fairly smooth ride on subtle to medium bumps, and still did its job on the larger bumps even though it suffered from the clunking. Handlebars on the Engine Pro are right around 25 inches wide. These are wider than some of the other e-bikes in this class, yet not as wide as typical mountain bike handlebars. These are actually just about perfect in my opinion, and aid in the overall control. The nice thing is the bars are narrow enough to help this bike sneak between the tight areas. I find this to be especially useful in the urban environment, while navigating through tight areas, squeezing between building guardrails and other objects that would otherwise be impediments for other bikes. This really does aid in the user's experience and allowed me to transition from area to area with ease and even slide through some areas that I would otherwise be unable to on a bike. The bars have nice quality leather grips with quality stitching, and the best part about them is that they have dual locks to keep these firmly in place. The brake levers are essentially 3-finger brakes that I found typically operated with 2 fingers until I needed a little more control or power. Easily gripping these with 3 fingers gave me that control. If I had to be nitpicky, I can definitely say that I'm not a big fan of the throttle being on the left-hand side of the bars. Being right-hand dominant, I do find that the left-hand control does feel a little bit awkward, and it definitely takes getting used to even after prolonged use. And admittedly, I am getting more and more used to this, but I do have to say I would absolutely prefer right-hand controls. I do realize that the bars are somewhat tight, and when it comes down to the length of the bars, the spacing needed for both the grips and the shifter, as well as how the computer mounts, would make right-hand mounting difficult. I think it might be possible to relocate the throttle to the right-hand side, but it would take some work and it would definitely not be optimum. So for this particular model, you're probably stuck with the throttle on the left-hand side. The computer is very easy to program, and it is very easy to get your settings dialed in. It has a beautiful LED screen, and it does appear to be the appropriate brightness in most, if not all, conditions. It is laid out very well, and it is very easy to understand, even when looking down and glimpsing quickly as you cruise the terrain. One of the features that I think is interesting but not necessarily practical is the regenerative braking. I did notice it tried to kick in on a couple of occasions, however it would require a substantially long hill of a fairly reasonable steepness to even add up to any additional battery capacity. That is a rarity where I ride, and probably the case for most average users. Although maybe it's better to have it than not, it does appear to be a feature that could easily be omitted to save some money or to upgrade some other components, such as maybe the front forks. Wink wink, nudge nudge, you know what I mean, Engwe? Even given some of the faults, I do find that the Engwe Engine Pro is a fantastic bike. Between its great looks, excellent comfort, versatile capability, and general performance. I know that as generations of new e-bikes evolve, it does take some growing pains to get various components dialed in into a package that not only looks premium, but functions to the highest possible standards. And in this case, we have a bike that is not only very good, but is truly excellent. The only true fault or criticism that I have is the clunky front suspension. And again, I can't quite tell if this is just a factor of me getting a defective unit or if this is just an underperforming fork in the first place. This is a bike that I know I will continue to ride on a regular basis as I bop around town or take my dogs on outdoor adventures. It will give my kids the ability to get over to their friends' houses with ease and provide a safe and reliable way to enjoy transportation and recreation alike. I can say, all things considered, I definitely recommend the Engwe Engine Pro.
And so, alright guys, there you have it, a look at the Engwe Engine Pro. Just an awesome e-bike and ownership experience all the way through, from the unboxing through the feature overview, and today the riding experience. I do have to say that all things considered, I think this is a great e-bike. It checks a lot of the boxes, and especially for the price point. Now, it's not going to be your full-size mountain bike. It's the 24-inch rims, but at the same time, you get the 1,000 watt peak power, which is awesome, hydraulic brakes, which is fantastic, and a nice 8-speed drivetrain. So when you combine all that together and you look at some of the other options on the market, I do have to say, I think they hit it right on the head. All things considered, I love the look of this bike. I think it's aggressive enough, beefy enough, yet it's not overbearing. It's just about perfect. And again, I do have to say that even though I think it has a little bit of a weakness with that front fork, in my experience, all in all, if you're riding this the right way and in the right conditions, it should be more than ample. Of course, I've taken it a little bit further for the testing purposes, really tried to put this through the paces, hit some hard bumps, and really push the limits to what I think this bike is intended for. It's not really meant for those single tracks, but certainly your urban environment, getting around point A to point B, transitioning between, different surfaces, going from pavement to grass to dirt. That is what this really excels at. And then in the off-road environment, the double tracks and really making it through those nice wide paths. And if you had to transition to the single tracks, you can absolutely do it. So all in all, the Engwe Engine Pro, it's pretty awesome. And so again, I would like to say thank you so much to the people at Engwe who did provide this for review. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor. Take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel's growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there. So if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.